All right, so small group this week, but that's okay. Similar to last week, we're going to zoom through the agenda, and then I'm going to turn it over to George so we can continue trying to figure out what the heck it is that we want to be doing. Otherwise, I have, well, yeah, I have some ideas about that as well. I've been thinking about that. So to the agenda we go. Hi, Neil. I can see a sneak in there. So just ahead. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, good. Okay, April, anything to talk about with contact training or anything like that we need to talk about?
I didn't hear back from the second person that I heard completed the training, so I guess I'll see if I can ping them again and see if they want the credit part of it.
All
I think I still need to add, or I need to do the credit for JD, but I think everything's been done for him except for that, so I can let him know that that's done when it's done.
You share the link to the agenda in the chat, please.
Oh, sure. I can do that real easy.
Thank you.
Kind of ran, no problem. Where's Chatty McChatterson. There we go. Okay. It's in there.
I think that's all I have as an update.
Okay. Good. I'm just scanning here. Just long-term discussion stuff. Community health. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about. Mental health first aid workshop. That's all just progressing and moving forward. Promotion is done. We're not going to talk about new trainings until we figure out what we want to focus on. So we can skip all the way down. Nudges, I searched today and there haven't been any new use cases of nudges, so it is what it is. But we'll just keep on keeping on with that. Membership. So Donna is now officially a provisional member. She's in the middle of her onboarding right now of the conflict resolution team, and we are aiming to add another member later this year as well. So once we get Donna through the onboarding, then we will revisit and add another member. Other than that, really no movement on membership. George Demet is not here, so I don't believe he has anything with the code of conduct. And so Jordana, last thing is, so what was the most recent open source community health call? That was May something, right? Do you know the date off the top of your head?
No, 1 second, I'll get it.
Yeah, I'm looking too. I should have filled this in earlier. I got it. It's 28th. That sound right?
Thank you. Yeah, and now we're gonna do it every last Friday of the month.
All right. Oh, Donna, thank you very much. Donna just hit me up in chat. I totally blew past something. Oh, so it's going to be okay. So future meetings are the last Friday of the month. Is that what you just said?
Yep.
Each month. Okay, so any new attendees or new communities this past month that we want to just capture, or anything that was discussed this past month that you want to bring up? Or
I'm blanking on their name. I will fill this out.
Okay.
I can't come up with the names right now.
Okay.
But we had a new community join, and 2 people have reached out, 2 communities, but there's a slight misunderstanding. So
Okay.
yeah, civic. Thank you, civic CRM.
Oh yes,
Thank
of course.
you,
Yeah.
Donna. Donna, I don't know how we functioned without you.
Yes. What was the discussion? Like, what was the what was the general discussion about on last?
We were talking
last month?
about it. So we seem to keep coming back about to certain topics of community health and code of conduct enforcement and training, leadership training, that kind of stuff. That was what it was basically focused on. What does being a leader mean in the community, and how can we support that?
Oh,
I thought an interesting piece of that also was how, for example, the difference between WordPress and Drupal communities are highly impacted by one is owned and one is not. Like you can't use the word WordPress or be a leader in WordPress without certain things because WordPress is owned. You know, I don't know,
Right.
Jordana, you can correct me.
Yeah, so it's more about how open it is to use the word Drupal versus trademarking and guidelines. They're much stricter in WordPress, and they have much more control in WordPress of what is allowed to happen and what's not. They have more strict rules about WordCamp. Go ahead.
Hi, Jordana. It's George. So the Drupal trademark is owned by Dries,
Mhm.
and to date he's been very
Lenient, I know.
lenient with it.
Mhm.
But that's not to say that it's not worth a discussion with him, right? Like it's I you know the DA's perspective, and there's varying factions within the community as to what the right approach to this is. And so far, the very open and liberal faction is won the day. That's not to say that's not the right approach either, right? Like it's you know, Drupal has had its success over the last 10 years with it being so liberal. But you know, if we really want to turn this into a meaningful way forward, we have to start the conversation with Dries and the trademark and what it means to call an event a Drupal event. And you know, that's a tough one.
that's a big discussion.
It is a big
Yeah.
discussion, but some of it's already ongoing and some of it's already happened with some of the Drupal Association, and I know with the liaison with Rachel. So this is definitely something we can add to topics we may want to explore further. But this was generally about how things are set up now versus how they are set up in WordPress, and how much stricter everything is. What do you need to have done to be a leader, like to host a WordCamp, and how long you like. They have strict rules in succession planning. You're only allowed to do it 2 consecutive years to be the lead as a WordCamp organizer. Those types of things, and you have to. There's also other types of trademarking thingies that they have to do if it are companies. So it's pretty in depth in what WordPress has as rules. So that's what I mean. It's all very strict and like written down, and there's a process for all of that. And in Drupal, it's kind of a little bit less. So that's all. But yeah, it's definitely worth a discussion.
Could I propose one thing? Like I have a feeling that the only reason why it's not necessarily like part of the guidelines for using the Drupal trademark is because we've just never asked Dries to include it. Like, you know, I think it could be as simple as saying, hey Dries, we think it's important for the Drupal community that as part of using the Drupal trademark, that they anybody that uses it should conform to the and enforce the guidelines as provided by the code of conduct.
I think it's also important to note, though, that there seem
Right.
to be certain drawbacks to the level of control WordPress as a whole had on the community. It seemed, and this might just be my perception, but it seemed we have a lot of independent thinkers in Drupal.
Mhm.
And I think there are strengths and weaknesses, and I have a feeling it's a much bigger, deeper discussion to determine. You know, I don't think it's something necessarily let's adopt or start that conversation. It's just something that I think we should weigh before making any sort of recommendations. Because as I said, there's definitely pluses, but
Well, and because we are such an autonomous community, like any big decision like this that just happens is going to cause some issues. So
mean,
like I
I
said,
think-
Yeah, we're
there
gonna tell
ha-
April you're not allowed to do Asheville
No,
for 2
and
years.
that's the whole thing. So there have been ongoing discussions about how to implement certain of these things in a way that is scalable and not as disruptive, to use that word a little bit within context. So this is definitely something we could bring up again with Rachel, because Rachel has been spearheading some of this. Rachel, as in the community liaison. So some of it's already happening. Some of these discussions have already been had, and there's been also been some blowback and discontent for when some of these conversations were had. So
Wow, I think that if, like, with our baby step would be just a simple request. If just adherence or adoption of the code of conduct be one of the requirements for using the Drupal trademark, they can do that. We don't have to do anything. We could just ask them and see if they agree to it or not. If it's not already, I'm actually not even sure 100% if it's not already mentioned as, one of the requirements. Like, we should probably find that out first, right? What are the
Look-
requirements?
Let me
But-
play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
So if that was the case, I mean, you always have to consider the enforcement aspect of that.
Oof.
Yeah,
know.
WordPress has a heavy enforcement group, and it seems to be even more voluntarily led. Like, people are checking lists of speakers, and if they see someone, they'll just pull them. And that's because someone is actually doing that work.
Well, it's probably a paid employee.
I think they said they had a very ambitious volunteer that really did all that, but
All right. Yeah. So yeah, this is a big discussion, a big topic.
we're
And
also
this
having
is-
a follow-up meeting next week that I think we're going to continue the leadership discussion. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jordana or Donna.
no, I think that's true. We were going to discuss more of this because it was such a broad topic and everybody was interested in it.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's great. I'm glad that is that seems to be having some positive effects. All right, I'm going to circle back to an issue that I blew past. It had one line in our. Oh, what's that?
Before, I just wanted to say that I do
Yeah.
agree with George that if it isn't already a thing, and it could be a good just ask to, hey, make the code of conduct the minimum requirements for using this, because what's stopping a hate
Yep.
group from putting together a Drupal hate camp or just using the trademark in that way? And that's a very hyperbolic
Yeah,
situation.
wondering, like,
but
would we have to define the context?
So again, I'm sorry to just jump in here, but there is some of these conversations have been had, and some of this has been like within the DA and within the CWG, so some of it's already taken place, is what I'm saying. I'm not sure if the ask was specifically directed to Dries. But
Yeah, because the DA they're not involved with the trademark, right? They're not. It's Dries and Dries alone. And so, and there are factions, even, I don't want to call it a faction, but the ideology may differ. Like the DA may resist this idea because maybe they don't want to pay to enforce it. There's a lot involved there. So I think the only meaningful conversation about this is directly with Dries.
Real quick, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I think Mike and Jordana are used to me doing this. Is this going to be one of the things we decide we take on? Because I think later on in the meeting, we're trying to narrow down what we're taking on to biteable chunks. So as much as I think this is an awesome conversation, I'm not really sure we're going to get anywhere right now.
This is definitely an option for something that we could decide if we want to focus on. And it should be captured as such. So if someone wants to add this as one of the items in the form that George set up earlier this week, the link is in our Slack channel. And this is absolutely a valid potential thing to focus on. All right, everybody good? Can I move forward? All right, so I do want to circle back to something I briefly mentioned last month. And I have it highlighted if you have a bunch of you have the agenda open. It's at the bottom of the community event support stuff. And that is a playbook for, and basically an ADA playbook for Drupal events. So we have a draft that Donna did a brain dump on, and then a bunch of us have hopped in and made some tweaks and asked some questions, and it's still very much in a draft state. Up to now, it's the only people involved have been conflict resolution team, and then Angie and Heather from the DA. And our goal is to open it up to us, the community health team, which I've now done. Although I don't think anybody has permission. I just realized I have to, open up. Or do I have to open up permissions, or is it already open? Let me check that right now.
I might have to open up permissions if I didn't.
Let's do. It says anyone on the internet with the link can view. How about we do anyone on the internet with this link can suggest? I'm going to do that. That makes it easier. Can comment, I mean. All right, so everybody should be able to view and comment on it now. And the idea of this is it's very similar to our code of conduct playbook that we have, and our code of conduct template that we have for events. But for ADA stuff, including an ADA statement, potential ADA statement and checkbox for registration of Drupal events. And then here I have, let me just go through the sections here real quick. The first bit, in the handout is the commitment, which is something that can be surfaced during registration. And then kind of some definitions and some reasonable accommodations that event organizers should provide for their attendees, online or in person, as well as a process for if there is an issue, what's the process to report and resolve an issue. And then I think the last section, well, maybe not the last section, but then we can provide a list, or the document should provide a list of recommended tools to help with ADA compliance. And then just some additional forms that where you can collect data and make additional tools available and surfaced. So the goal is very much that we want to get as many people's feedback on this from this group. And I would say in the next week. And April, I'm hoping that a week from today-ish, or sometime late next week, I can share it with the event organizers working group. And I'm hoping that maybe you can be our champion for this with those folks. And then, ideally the goal is to get this as finished as we can, as polished as we can, put it up on Drupal.org, just like we have the code of conduct playbook, and make this available to all event organizers. So I know that's a lot, I'm on a call. That's okay. That's a lot, and there's a lot of a brain dump in a few minutes. Sorry, that was my mom right there. Yeah. But if everybody can carve out a few minutes, probably 15 to 30 minutes, I think, just for a read through, and maybe a little bit more time if you really want to dig into it, I would really appreciate it. And, hopefully the sooner we can get this out there, the sooner Drupal events can be taking advantage of it.
And
So,
the
yeah, go
idea
down.
behind the checkbox is that the question came up is, what if somebody, blows by it and doesn't realize what's happening. By this, we're having people acknowledge that they're accepting the accommodations and they'll work with the teams to find something that works as best as within reason. So if you're wondering why that checkbox piece of that came up, it was in direct response to a concern of, well, if somebody blows by it and then wants a refund, what do we do? In this case, just like a terms of service, they're acknowledging and taking accountability for their part in the process.
In exchange, we are letting them know what, or the event is letting them know what they can provide. So before I say anything, or before we move on, does everybody kind of understand the point of this, or the gist of what this is for? JD, I see you nodding. Thank you for that. April, I'm looking at you because I know you're our event liaison,
Yeah.
or one of them.
My only question was, when did you want our feedback by? Just to get my deadlines in order.
Like anything else, there's no hard deadline. In a perfect world, I would love to be able to share this with the event organizer working group, in about a week. But if 2 or 3 of you come back and say, look, I've had a busy week, I can't get back to you until the week after next, I'm going to say fine. But I would love to get, some feedback, and we, myself and Alex and Jordana and Donna, we have some questions in there that are still kind of open-ended that we're not sure about. So any feedback that we can get, that we can make this better before we share it with the event organizers working group, the better. But I'm more than willing to share it with them in an unfinished state, because I think they're going to have knowledge that we don't have. But I'd like to get as many eyes as possible on it, because I think that'll make that last step of the process as smooth as possible. Sound good? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So, all right. So, George, I'm going to shut up now, and you've got 32 minutes to do your thing. Is that cool?
Great. No, thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, thank you.
So 32 minutes isn't enough time to run a 6 thinking hats exercise, but lucky for us, upon reviewing the submissions submitted to the form, which I thank everyone for doing that, we saw some common threads. So I kind of just boiled it down. So I want to share my screen. I'm going to share a spreadsheet, one with all our suggestions in it and what I boiled it down to. And it's going to lead to some focus, which is what we've been seeking this whole time anyway. So this is a list of our responses. You could see I've gave it a little ID number just so I can keep track of it. But yeah, we are run focused, right? You have to provide a higher degree of confidence to community members on the code of conduct. You have to help the community understand and embrace their own leadership. Divide it into smaller, more focused groups. This is us. This is specifically referencing us. We are a group of people, again, referencing us, which is great feedback. To find a way to ensure that individual Drupal event COC violation agreements, again, same thing, right? Like we saw that a couple times actually, right? Engaging the community in a meaningful way, same thing again. Defining leadership roles. All right, so I boiled it down. I created a second sheet here, and we pretty much have 3 main issues. Right, I kind of like gave the IDs to this, and I've kind of took an average of the actual difficulty that has been registered. And the biggest problem that we have is that we're unfocused. Right, so my first pass here was, based on the suggestions in the submission form, we've got a couple action items already that we can focus on. Right, we do have to do some due diligence. We don't know which project management system to use, but all in all, I believe that we all agree that we need some sort of tracking tool to manage the tasks that we assign ourselves.
So let me jump in. We actually I think we have one. We've
Great.
been using one internally, the conflict resolution team, and I think we can probably expand that to the entire community health team. We just have to find some bandwidth to make that happen.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So that sounds like problem solved. Right. So the suggestion, as was summarized, to use a project management system but then there were several suggestions that we assign or create smaller teams amongst ourselves to attack these bigger issues and stay focused on resolving them. So what I propose we do is that we take advantage of this system that the CWG is using, add our projects to it, break up in small groups, and commit to working as a team, as a small team on these things. So, great. That's, I mean, that, oh, I think that are generally agreed upon biggest issues that we're unfocused, and that would take us a long way from where we are right now. The second two issues are the more difficult ones. I summarized it as promote adoption of the code of conduct across the community, which, as you saw earlier, was there's a lot of ways forward with that, but namely, you definitely start to hit walls, right? These walls are organizational walls and how we operate as a community. So this will take more due diligence. This will take a proposal of sorts that does some analysis and creates a business case that proposes change to how the code of conduct is enforced across the organizers. And I think that I wrote a whole summary here of the suggestions of across the different issues that were related to this, but I try to summarize them as best I can, right? But I think the main action here, and this is one of the projects that we can start to track, which is the business case for the enforcement of the code of conduct. And also some collaboration with some of the other groups that may have done a lot of the due diligence on defining what leadership is and what contribution is. We have a contribution recognition committee. It's led by Mike Lamb. I'm not, I've reached out to Mike. I reached out to Ryan Zarama. I reached out to a couple other people in the community that might be aware of the output of that, namely Adam Bergstein and Dick Olson, and to no avail. I'm not sure they published their due diligence.
Try reaching out to Tim Lennon.
Tim Lennon.
Yeah.
Awesome. I will absolutely do that.
So yeah, we are on your user profile. You can now put in your community roles, as in like you're on the CWG, or and have all that in structured data and say if that's on behalf of an organization or not. So
excellent.
Go fill out your user profiles. They'll turn into ranking for organizations if it's on behalf of an organization, if they're giving your time for that.
Great. All right. So that's a clear action item. We have a project. There's sub-task items already. And reaching out to Tim Lennon is one of them. And that's something that I could do very easily. The third main theme is providing understanding to the mission of our mission to the community. And this is another project. This blog post idea is one that I just thought of. I was like, well, why don't we probably already have a couple, right? It probably wasn't that effective. I'm just assuming, I don't know. But it warrants more thought, right? It warrants a project to promote our mission. And probably how we should start with is to define and review the mission statement amongst ourselves. I think that's a separate meeting. I know that we've been to one already where we were trying to define it. I don't know where that netted out. That might be because I've, I don't necessarily pay attention to certain threads. So this one, I don't know if we published or discussed amongst ourselves what the output of that review of our mission statement was. And if not, then that's an action item that we should track in our project management system, which we all agree that we need. So typically what would happen here, and I don't know how much time I have left, but what we would do if we were in the same room is we would vote which one's the most important one to us, and the majority would win. Since this one's already done, we have a binary vote here, A or B.
I feel like we're missing something from this list, though.
What's that?
It's the stuff that like we are, already doing,
Oh,
right?
right. Yeah.
Like we, we're doing workshops, right? Should we focus on doing more workshops? We're in charge, or we keep the code of conduct template and code of conduct playbook, and now this ADA playbook we're building out for Drupal events, and we maintain that. And that's a thing that we do, but that's not represented here.
Okay, I base this solely on the submissions of the form.
No, yeah, I know. I'm just trying to figure out like how do we, like I get like, and I'll use workshops as an example, because I had hoped that we would be able to build out like a group of workshops and have them available and recurring, and people would be interested in them. But it's not, things aren't panning out the way I thought. And the same thing can be said for nudges, right? I would hope that we spent a lot of time developing the nudges, but whether we just don't need them that much, which I guess would be, knock on wood, the situation, or we're just not seeing the opportunities to use them. I don't want to throw time at stuff that doesn't make sense.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what this exercise is all about. Let's decide where we want to, because I think, George, you talked about it either last month or the month before. We don't know what our budget of volunteer hours is, right? We don't know how many hours the community health team can volunteer per month. If I just pull a number out of the hat and say 50 hours a month, which is probably high, but whatever. Then now we have to spend those 50 hours on certain tasks. And so I just want to make sure that this discussion that we're having now leads to us somehow being able to intelligently spend those volunteer hours and stuff that's meaningful and stuff, and that is stuff that we actually want to be doing.
Great. That's great feedback. And I think I can't ignore that this is what we got back when we submitted, when we sent the form out, right? Like, so.
No.
But what that says is that we got good response from the group, right? A lot of we got 8 submissions. I don't know, if you didn't submit anything, that's great, it's fine. But we got a lot of engagement with it. This might be our mode of figuring out what's next, right? Including the things that you mentioned, right? So, but again, no matter how organized we are, we're collecting the ideas. If we can't execute them, we're, it's great, but that's that's like half the battle, right? Is actually executing a task and sharing the results with the community. So we definitely need to track the things that we assign, right? So let's do that, definitely. Right.
That,
it sounds
and,
like you have the keys to all that.
And we have to kind of, Donna's gonna be very happy that I say this, but I think we have to project management the hell out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
We have to basically decide, which folks, or not decide, but see which folks are interested in working in which task. and then get them in a ClickUp. ClickUp is the project management system that we've been using.
Yeah,
Get them in the ClickUp group, get the task going, get the tasks assigned, and then go that way, which I'm all on board for. So I will stop talking again.
No, great. No, that's a very valid suggestion, and yes, that would require it, right? We are volunteers. It's kind of hard to herd cats. That's exactly what we're dealing with here, right? So let's although there is one mechanic that I'd like to talk about that exists in I don't mean mechanic, like a mechanism, like it's like a model that exists within Scrum, which is the self-organizing model angle of Scrum that may be valuable in a volunteer setting. I'm curious exactly how successful it would be or wouldn't be, but I'm definitely open to experimenting with it. But it's hard to be self-organized if it's not like really easy to execute a task, right? Like if it actually requires thought and energy. So go ahead.
I think that once we have the tickets in and we have people owning certain tickets, the self-organizing will come more naturally. I'm not saying there won't be any hiccups, but I think that sort of self-organizing team will move itself forward and evolve on its own once we give as a whole the thems, including myself, all of us, that tool and that framework on which to organize.
Great.
That's my perception.
Awesome. Yeah, you're right. And I could even simulate it right now with something that I've experienced while working on the team, right? Which is we were talking about defining the roles on Drupal.org, and required conversation with Rachel, and then in a meeting we all agreed. We're like, all right, okay, George, you're going to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then the let's just call it what it was, right? We missed it. We missed it. It was a miss, right? I think that's the kind way to say it. But like if it was still an open item and it was still in a queue and someone else was like, you know what, I'm going to put some energy into this group right now, and they see that it's open and they see that it's a layup and they just grab it and they go for it. That's self-organizing, right? Now, the next thing you know, April's going down the queue and she's like, that one, got it, boom, mine, min, right? Or and there's nothing I could do about it, right? Because it was open and we're a self-organizing team, and that's it, right? But the way the accountability before was, if I didn't show up or if I didn't do it, or it was kind of like that's how things linger, right? So that's a valuable technique that may get us more productive with certain situations. So I'm all for that. Okay, the second one, the other two items are they're projects. They're projects that require a lot more discussion. I think this one's closer than this one, but there's been movement on both of them, as Jordana mentioned earlier. And I know I've sat in a review of our mission with George. So yeah, let's start here and then put these two projects in, and then Mike, we could run this through again with the workshops that you want to do or whatever, and see what comes back, and then we'll put them in and just decide as a group if they're projects or not, and keep it moving.
I think something we're going to have to figure out, and not today for sure, but especially for the second two items, is how do we measure? Like, where's the finish line, or how do we measure if we're actually having an effect, or can we even set a goal? Like, is there a measurable goal? Like, these are really hard questions, I know, but
yeah, for this one, there is no finish line. The mission statement is always evolving. The mission statement is responding to the needs.
Well,
of the
forget about
community.
the finish line. How do we know that we're
Right.
even like moving in the right direction? How do we measure progress?
Oh,
Like we need sounds like we need to record key performance and KPIs like we would a regular project. Say
Yeah.
where we are now, figure out what the measurement tool is and report back on it.
Yeah.
6 months or
Yeah,
whatever. And it sounds like we just need us to
That's
do
the hard
that.
part right there, figuring out what the measurement tool is.
yeah, it's totally separate project. We would need all sorts of tasks and thoughts and it's a separate meeting. This alone, this is one meeting. We have to discuss everything that we need to do, or get everyone's voice. And just on this alone, we could run a 6 stick and hats exercise, and we're going to get a lot of different things, and it's going to be a big, huge project. And yeah, I think we could do it. It's not like this one is closer, and there is a very clear KPI, which is every camp that calls himself a Drupal camp adheres and enforces the code of conduct amongst itself. That's the metric, right? There should be a consistently safe place for everybody at Drupal events, right? Like it's just what we owe each other as a community. Yeah, that and we don't stop until it's there. And that's it, right? Or something that is equal, right?
All right, well, I will commit to getting the ball rolling on getting with, Donna's help and Alex as well, because I think Donna and Alex know ClickUp better than the rest of us. Getting some groups set up in ClickUp. And then we'll reach out on the full CWG channel to see who's interested in what and add people to the relevant groups. And then as part of that, we're gonna have to start creating subtasks and figure out what those subtasks are and figure all that stuff out.
Okay.
Not an easy task, but
well, I mean, if we play along the lines of the self-organizing team, it might be
Yeah.
easier than you're imagining right now. So
okay, that's good.
so
All right,
yeah,
I like that answer.
Yeah. If let's create the get us all access to the project management system that you have access to right now.
Mhm.
Step 1. Step 2 is create the projects in that system. Then step 3 is whatever tasks that we do know, and we've written out some within our suggestions in the form already. I could definitely assist there and kind of break this down into actionable tasks. And then we have to iterate over the 2 projects for sure, right? We're going to have a nudges type meeting,
Mhm.
maybe just one, where we just discuss it and we break it all down, and then we leave them open. And somebody will take ownership of some of it, and then that's that. And then as they go down the list, we'll all kind of hop on board or not, right? And you could tell that if we're not hopping on board,
There's no interest.
there's no, yeah, right, don't do it,
Right.
right? It's not the community's not demanding it of us.
So is there any issue with me adding additional projects that we're already doing but just aren't on this list?
No, why not?
Yeah,
Go
well,
for it.
we'd have a project for nudges because that's going to come back at some point. We'd have a project for the trainings. We'd have a project for this, for that. We'd have all of these other
The
ones.
ADA
Not all-
stuff. Yeah.
ADA. So, and frankly, it's a traditional column or list view, depending on what
Yeah.
you look at it, but what's in progress. And there might be things we just put into the darn icebox because we care about them,
Yeah.
but we can't have the resources right now.
Okay. All right. I can definitely get the ball rolling and then ask for help when I need it, which will be early and often.
All right, well, I got your back.
Yeah.
So as soon as you
All right.
say that they're in, I'll gladly assist with the
Okay.
task.
All right. Perfect. Where are we on time? I haven't even looked. 2:51. Okay, so we got about 9 minutes left. George, I hit you in Slack. Just when you have a moment, give me the link to that doc just so I can put it in the minutes. And if you would just make that doc visible by anybody with the link, that'd be helpful.
You got it.
All right, thanks. All right, well, unless there's something else that we want to discuss, we might as well adjourn early. I know we're all busy people. Is that cool with everybody, or is there anything outstanding?
Did I not use all the time? I would have I could have kept talking.
Yeah, we know. It's all right. Too late. You said you were done.
I'm done. Oh.
All right, everybody. Well, good to see everyone, and have a great rest of your week. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Yeah.